Wow. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jack Devine coming back with a little office hours here. Kicking it in my PJs here on Super Bowl Sunday, and I wanted to talk about, seeing as how we're dealing with New Orleans today in the game, I would think about probably the big daddy of all New Orleans composition, Allen Toussaint. He is a master composer, songwriter, whatever you want to call him. He's one of those, national treasure kind of guys, and this is Brickyard Blues. So what a wonderful tune. Some of you may be familiar with it from Little Feat, or I think there's like some other band that did it back in the, like, maybe it was the Dave Clark Five or something. This is like American songwriting at its finest. All right, and so we have a really interesting progression that has some dynamite changes for you to learn how to play over, and I think you guys will have a fun time checking this song out if you don't know it. Being a suburban white kid from the Northeast, I had very little exposure to this kind of music until I went away to prep school. And there were some people there that were into the Neville Brothers and things that's like kind of adjacent to the blues and jam band stuff that was emerging around that time. And again, as my interest in blues began to grow, and maybe some Dixieland and some awareness of the traditions from the New Orleans area, Alan Toussaint's name kept coming up, tethered to these amazing songs. So let me clean up the overdrive here, and we can talk about what's going on in this loop. Okay, so we'll start. It starts in G. It was G, all right, F, E7 to A minor, C minor, back to G, and then a D chord there. And then B7, then back to G. Again. Back to A minor. C minor, back to G. And then just a D, no going to that. And then the chorus is G, D, G, 7, C, G, D, G. Back to 5. So we go 1, F, E7, A minor, C minor, G to 5 chord, B7 back to G, down to F, E7, A minor, up a minor third to C minor, back to G, and up to the 5. Five, 7, and 4. 1. Play me some Brickyard blues. Right? So, how am I tackling that, right? Let's see what we've got going on. Let's see if anybody's out there even saying hello on Super Bowl Sunday morning. Whee! Let's get this out here. Should have probably done this before embarking on my little voyage. Hope everybody's doing well. I have been a bit of a homebody as of late. My wife is recovering from a little surgery on her hip, and as such, I am Jack Divine nursemaid at large. Whoops. I've been taking care of my family in a way that makes you feel good. Makes you feel good about yourself. All right, let's see if we've got anything happening out here. La-di-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. 8 people watching me now. There's nobody out there. Tasty. Let us sleep this morning? Hi, Fishy Fish. How you doing? Okay, so kind of a G blues, right? We got to think about it in terms of we're playing kind of the 1 chord down to F, E7. All right, which is acting like we're going to this the 6 dominant, so that we can go to the 2 minor. All right, then this is the really tricky part. We come up a minor third from there, back to G, and then up to the 5, and then, all right, and that's not common. We don't do that an awful lot. These are kind of, keyboard changes. This is not, most guitar players don't write like this, in my opinion. So if we're going, I think it's, well, I tried to run my game. She said, man, it's just the same, those lines that I've heard before. And I can't do no more, that's for sure. Oh, da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 da. So think about that. Ba 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 da da da. Ba ba da 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 da. And then you get the play something sweet, make it funky. Just let me lay back and grin like a monkey. Give me something I can stand. Play me some Brickyard blues. Levon Helm did this tune. Justin, I see it says Levon. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. It's definitely in the guy's in his wheelhouse, right? So if we start out, where are we coming off of? Our old friend the 6. Well, you try to da do da, and then major 7 da do da da. So this E is the big note over top of the first 3 chords, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the ideas that we want to try to deal with. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of just aping the vocal phrasing, which is absolutely 100% in my opinion, the best strategy you could have for a tune like this, especially as we're trying to learn it. Okay, think about what the singer does and try to kind of mock or emulate that contour of that. Okay, so well, she tried there's this little triplet thing that happens over this halftime triplet thing over the right. Now we could do the same thing. Right? So if you think about how you get from E7, all right, then okay, and then we've got our little play something sweet, play something mellow, play something I can sink my teeth in like jello. Play me something I can stand. Play me some Brickyard blues. Now, see that? Brickyard blues. That's 5 flat 3 2 1. Our old friend, the major pentatonic flat 3. I'm telling you, folks, this is the secret to playing decent rock music that doesn't sound schlocky. All right. Without it, you're not. Very few songs sing like the singing is not the vocal melodies are most often out of major pentatonic, not minor pentatonic notes. Okay. It seems this, at least in this style of music, for sure, like this is where things emanate from. However, there's this nice little vibe that we can do. Instead of going, we can go, instead of play me some Brickyard blues, we can do play me some Brickyard blues, play some, get up to that 6 or even the 7. Right? Okay, so you can mess with that note. You don't want to go, that's not so good. The 4 isn't so good. So that 6 flat 3 2 1 is awesome as well. Okay, so here's like, you know, what am I thinking? If I'm thinking about the melody, right? So that's going to be a G chord with the 6 being up top, right? Okay, the next thing is over that F chord. So if we're back here, that C is now going to be valid over the second chord, right? Now here's where we're going to get over top of that E. Right, we've got that A minor chord coming up, right? So this is the secondary dominant, okay? This is leading us, that's the 5 of the A minor. So we can do E harmonic minor, we can do the Phrygian dominant as well. So let's try seeing some of those ideas. Sorry, I fucked that up. Let's try that again. What? That was wrong. So E natural should have been an E flat. All right, so we made our way down from the G6 chord. So E up top. So then if we have an F chord with the E up top, we're looking at what's most likely going to be heard as kind of, because we've got the E coming afterwards, I tend to think of that as like an F Lydian sound. Right? And that's going to play very nicely with okay, because it's the same sound, basically. You're playing that F Lydian over both the F chord, the E7, and then back to A minor. All right, so all three of those are kind of stemming from that same sound. It's a nice little coincidence, okay? Okay, whole idea comes up in minor. back to G, back to D, and now B7 sharp 1, flat. Okay, we've got a B7 there, that little sound. When we get to that chord, right? So if we did try to explain, whatever, do 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 do. C minor back to G to the 5 chord, major 3. So when we get to that chord, we're also looking at the options of going like it's a B7, sure, but you have to think about what kind of B7, right? Is it a B7 functioning as a 5? Or is it the B7 acting like a secondary kind of sound? And so it is. It's going to be an altered kind of B7 sound. We're going to be looking to hear a flat 2 in there, a flat 9. Okay, so that's going to put you in this sound. All right, so you're going to want to look for that change right there. I know this is kind of varsity level changes in my opinion, but right, C minor, D, and right here we'd hear right here. C minor. There is no shortage of money notes over these changes. There's a ton of great information for you to figure out. And just quoting the melody is going to be a rich resource for how to approach playing over these types of changes. You start to see, okay, when faced with this change, we're going to employ certain techniques. All right, so what are we seeing? We're seeing an awful lot of secondary dominant ideas being used here. We're seeing that over top of that E7 on our way to the A minor, and we're also seeing it over that B7 on our way back to the 1 chord of G. And the ideas are basically the same. We can play, right? We can play that kind of diminished hack, right? We could do full diminished over both, right? So that would be the B chord, we would play C diminished, and over top of the E chord, pardon me, we could do F diminished, or you can just kind of think about it more like the way I approach it usually is more like a dominant 7 sound, okay, but with a flat second, okay, so, or a flat 9, right? Okay, now there's this parallel minor third kind of move, right? We've got this minor chord after we do the E dominant to A minor, and then the whole thing comes up. All right, that's the 4 minor. That's the C minor going back here. Okay, that's a minor plagal cadence. That is a very, very cool moment for you. So if you're playing over top of that A minor sound, any ideas you were doing, okay, don't forget that's going to be A. As you come up, though, you're going to want to change. Rather, we were playing A minor with an F in it. But when we come up 3 frets, we want to make sure we're playing. All right, we want to play minor. We don't want to do that. We want to keep that A in there. So it's kind of like a C minor 6 is the sound that we want to think about. Or over top of this, we're not thinking about that Dorian minor sound. We're not looking at that. Okay, so we're going. So over top of that C minor, it's. Okay, so that was me playing the minor 4, back to the 1, back to the 5, back to the. Okay, so these rhythm guitars, the rhythm guitar awareness leading towards an awareness of where those arpeggio or chord shapes are going to be is key to blowing through changes that are kind of elevated a little bit, right? This isn't just straight up blues, you know? So anyway, it's just a thought. My favorite ideas here, you know, are pretty much just hitting that melody during the chorus. And the fact that we've got this kind of ostinato around that E. Okay, now we get to hit that E flat. Okay, so if we just play that same phrase over the first couple of chord changes, you'll see what I'm talking about. We're going to target the E and then come back. E flat. Something sweet, now make it funky. Just let me lay back and live like a monkey. Play me, I can understand. Play me some Brickyard blues. so over the top of that B chord, right? Once we do that, there's that 2 times through the A, right? We're doing the down to F, E7, E7, A minor, parallel minor. Sorry, not parallel, but you know, like modulated up a minor, 3rd minor, play go back to 1 to the 5 chord, and then we go B. Right, so you'll notice that sometimes I'm hitting that. Okay, so that's the 5th and the 3rd of that B7 sound. And like I said, that flat 2, all right, that's going to be. Okay, so if you hear the 3rd, the flat 2, and the 5, you're basically staring at a diminished voicing. So once you hear that as a diminished option, you can then go, and that's what I did. So you'll see, I'll try to end up here and I'll show you this. It's the old diminished trick of going +3, +3, +3, and then all we have to do is stick the dismount and come back into G chord tones, which happen to be just conveniently back. Right, so that would be B7 functioning as a diminished. Watch, you'll see how that plays out in a second, okay? What? There's the button. Lots and lots and lots of fun for advanced buffoonery like that. I think it's definitely an upscale song in terms of its challenge levels, right? It's a pretty high handicap. That's all I wanted to talk about. I've been driving around in this car listening to this lately, driving my family nuts with it. If anybody has any, yeah, Greg, hey, good to see you, my friend. Hope all is well out there. Does anybody have any questions, or they need not be about Brickyard Blues or Alan Toussaint's wonderful career? Somebody saying let us sleep this morning. Oh, yeah, I guess so. Oh, Hayes, I see. Yeah, so sorry about that. I'm not trying to wake anybody up. I'm taking it easy myself. Does anybody have any questions? Because if you don't, I guess we could make it a short one and let everybody get on with making their wings or their tater tots or their guacamole. Please stop calling it guac, people. Come on, have a little respect. That is a hell of a sauce. Anyway, yes, there are. Are there any rules? Well, the first and only rule is, does it sound good? So try it. I tend to prefer to have theory explain why something worked rather than lead me to think about experimenting, right? So when I hear that melody, right? When I'm hearing that G with the 6 over top, okay, and then again. So now we have an F chord with an E up top. So now we've already established that we're dealing with a... And when you look at the extensions that make F Lydian, right? It's going to be the flat 5, or sharp 4 rather, right? The major 7, all right? And I personally always play flat thirds into thirds, regardless of whether or not they're Lydian, Mixolydian, or Ionian major chords, right? Because this is an F major chord, right? Right, so I do that, and so I'm already seeing with that bass tone, right? Right, and then with the E7 coming after it, and an A minor coming after that, all those notes make a ton of sense. So whenever we see harmonic minor, we should be aware that there's a diminished chord lurking in there. And I've gone through this analysis before. Thank you, Damurin, for thanking me for the live. So Hayes, to answer your question, let's look at which harmonic minor scale we're using. And then from in there, you'll spot it's pretty fun to play spot the diminished chord, right? So if we're playing into an E7 sound from A minor, right? We want to use, all right, we're playing from an E7 sound into an A minor chord. So we're going to play over the E chord. We're going to be playing its root, third, fifth, and flat 7. But the connective tissue, if you will, between the 5th and the 7, we're not going to play. That's the third. That's a major third of the A chord. We're going to a minor chord, so we're thinking about including. You started with pentatonic scales. That's good. I'm glad that you grew up in Nashville and Tennessee, Nashville and Chicago. So those are both great music cities here in the U.S. So rich and storied histories there. So I want to address everyone's comments and at the same time stay on track here. So if we're playing over an E7 chord, but we're headed to A minor, we kind of give the E triad, or it's actually 4 notes, right? Preeminence. And then the connective tissue between those, we want to think about, well, do we want to have on our way to the third? Do we hear going into a minor chord? That would make it a minor chord with a major 7 and a 6. So there's very few we don't hear this minor chord sound very often. We're far more apt to hear, okay, right, or this kind of major minor sound, and that's where we're headed towards, is this kind of. Okay, so that's playing A harmonic minor right before we go to A minor, okay? And the reason why we do that is it has the major third, the root, the 5th, and the flat 7 of the E7 sound, and it alludes to where we're going. So it's kind of like a good writer would talk about what's going on in the moment, and at the same time might use a device called foreshadowing to show that where we're going, right? It's kind of like conditioning the ear to hear where we're headed to. So you'll see how it makes a lot of sense. If I start out playing the G, F thing and then quickly get to that A harmonic minor sound, you'll hear, I'll do that same. kind of sound. I like some of those like kind of more colorful flourishes, right? So if we're doing the 6. Okay, so over top of that, if I did anything other, if I went and played your standard E Mixolydian sound over top of that E7 sound, it's not going to sound like it's going to, it sounds just a lot of bad notes, or sounds that are less strategically placed, in my opinion. So you can avoid anything and just play the 4 tones of the E7 arpeggio, E, G sharp, D, and B, right? But if you want to find the connective tissue, look to the A minor scale tones that exist in between the chord tones. So that would make, right? Right? And so what we see is we see this big jump haze, right? Between the major 7 of the A chord we're headed to. All right, so we've got a full minor third. So we have the root, major 7, down a minor third to get to the flat 6, and then, so we have this. And whenever we see that shape, we start to hear some sounds that we might, oh, okay, so we've got a minor third here, and then another minor third, and then another minor third, and then another minor third. So all of a sudden we found a diminished chord kind of buried inside of the A harmonic minor scale. So that would be, it's going to be F diminished. F diminished is now up for grabs. So watch as we go from G with that 6 down to F Lydian. We can now play F diminished. That kind of, that would be it. So if we did that, right, so that would be playing that over, yep. Have to play that into the A minor sound. So that's going to be somewhat athletic for sure, okay? So. Ah, shit, sorry. So. There it is, right? So, right? Into that A minor sound, right? So E7 relative to A minor is an instant trigger. Whenever you see that 5 chord going to a minor 1, think over the E chord. You want to think about playing the harmonic minor scale. And whenever you see harmonic minor, you can start to think about that as there are modes of the harmonic minor scale, just like there are modes of the major scale. And the 5th mode of the harmonic minor scale is a word you'll hear me throw around an awful lot called Phrygian dominant. And that means off of the dominant chord, we include the dominant arpeggio, that's the, and then some Phrygian notes. So we would have the Phrygian 2, okay, the 4, the 5 and the raised 5. And the flat 7. So that's how we, so that's the Phrygian dominant sound. Then you have F diminished. That's going to sound really good. And then A harmonic minor. Right. You could always just play A minor, like, which is like significantly less brainy, right? But it doesn't have some of the color, all right? So when we see that happening over that E7 chord, that's what we play, okay? And then when we, then the real thing is that right on the heels of making the change into the A minor, we want to come up a minor third and play C dominant. Sorry, C. That would be a C minor Dorian, right? So that's going to be minor third 2, flat 7, 6. Right? But what we really want to do is dwell more on the fact that we're going and resolve up into the third of the G chord that we're coming back to. So let's look at some of these subtle little moves that give it like that dramatic, I know what I'm doing kind of sound. That was bad. Okay, bad note choice there. Reminds you of the sax line from Yellow Moon by Los Lobos. Entirely possible. Los Lobos are really kind of an unsung treasure. They don't get enough credit. David Hidalgo, I believe is his last name. Really pretty tasty player. So you get a lot of. You get a lot of this energy coming out of the New Orleans, the Crescent City stuff. It's an amazing sound, okay? And these chords, we don't need to be, I've got a little bit too much overdrive on, in my opinion, but I'm trying to get some sustain and keep the volume down because the missus is asleep directly above me, so the bass from the loop tends to get in the way. But you can hear a couple of motifs that I tend to employ when I'm going into the C minor. I'll do hard to find live shows in public these days. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you are, but go down if you're ever back in Nashville. Obviously, you got tons of great picking on display all the time. I'm not sure what's going on in Chicago. I've actually never gotten busy at Chicago as a grown-up. I've landed in the airport. It's always been fucking freezing cold when I've landed in Chicago, and I've had no incentive to get out of the airport. I just get me to my gate, get me back to LA. And I was back when I was occasionally flying cross country to when I was in college in California. So I wish I could help, but I agree with you, my man. The days of going out and seeing live music 3-4 nights a week, it just doesn't seem to be happening, especially here in the city. It's kind of, in my opinion, maybe it's just that I'm over the hill and none of my friends want to do that kind of thing anymore. Because I mean, I'm 55 years old, so it doesn't really speak to get my friends off the couch to come see me play. It doesn't happen, and I can't take it personally. They're old. They're old, they're tired. They've probably been up since 5 o'clock in the morning because they woke up in the middle of the night and had to pee. It's depressing, okay? I get it. I totally get it, all right? So, that said, I can't help it. I like the nightlife. I like to boogie. All right, I love the nightlife. You did Tex-Mex and okay, yeah. I mean, those are great. Those are nice. Those are some nice amps for sure. I like the vibreverb quite a bit. All right, so the ideas on display here. We're playing major pentatonic flat 3, Lydian, then that's a harmonic minor to A minor, C Dorian, back to G, and up to D mixo, and then finally that B. Right, that B with the flat 2. So again, it's the same extension that we tried over top of the E dominant sound. We turned that into an F diminished, or the fifth below harmonic minor. So that would have been E harmonic minor, can work nicely over top of the B7 chord that happens there. Joseph the painter. Oh, I remember you, dude. You used to play this in a bar with the female blues better. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a great song. This song is nuts. That said, it's not up tempo. It just has dynamite changes, and I love the drama changes. I love it when you hear tunes that have this kind of the craft that goes into hearing these changes, as opposed to. I mean, look, I like a nice simple song too, but this is a great opportunity to work out some of these other ideas. So the same little trickery that we played here, where we went to go from E7 to A minor, we can now think about playing over top of that B7, right? We just want to resolve to a major chord. So if we think about okay, so it's those kinds of moves that I think are kind of lost on most of us as we're like in that area between, say, 7 and 15 years of playing guitar. And that's only as you become like a grizzled old vet that you kind of start to see the traditional moves that have been made, and it becomes kind of like this old chestnut. Like we've as you score more stripes on your sleeves as players, you start to realize, okay, these are the moves that are made consistently over time that pertain to these. So that's the 6 as a dominant chord, the 3 as a dominant chord, and the 2 as a dominant chord. Okay, those are very common. Okay, so 2, 3, and 6. That's whenever we take the typically minor chords in the G major would be G major, A minor, B minor, and E minor, right? Those would be the 3 minor chords that we would have there, okay? We got 3 minors, 3 majors, and 1 half diminished. So we want to think about if whenever one of those minor chords becomes a dominant 7 chord, we treat it as a secondary dominant, and that opens up the floodgates to all these other ideas. So circling back to Hayes's question if there are any rules, that's the closest that I can come to talking about the rules. It's just that the tendencies to where we want to stick the landing change depending on which. If we're going from a dominant 2 chord, usually we're going to go to a dominant 5 chord. Okay? If we're going from a dominant 3 chord, usually we're going to go to a minor 6 or a dominant 6 or up to the 4, right? So sometimes we hear that. Okay, the other cliche ideas are, what do we do with this minor 4? Right? So we've got a C minor sound. And then you got to give us the melody. Play something sweet, play something mellow, play something I can sink my teeth in like jello, jello. Play something mellow. Nothing more really to talk about with this bad boy other than get busy trying to figure out how to make it sound sweet and soulful first, okay? Steal that melody. Listen to the song and see about like when we're basically playing out of a G blues sound, but when we go to one of these kind of chords that's a little you might have to tailor the sound that you're used to making, right? So that's a good example of what's going on. I'm playing along with me, and to oversimplify, could one play the C major scale over this loop and target the chord tones to fake their way through a loop? Ah, C major. Well, there's some notes that you'd be missing. Yeah, you'd be missing. You'd have to look for a couple of, Oh, I don't play in New Orleans area, by the way. I wish I could. I wish I could get down there. So by Brian X Surfer, I think that's Brian X Surfer. Yeah, I wouldn't think about this as playing in C major at all. No, I would think about this as playing in G major pentatonic. Then over the F, think about it as being F major pentatonic with a couple of extra good notes, which basically will shine the light on it being F Lydian. Okay, which is going to be D Dorian, so that you could play C major over, because F Lydian is one of the modes of C major. So sure, I guess that would hold true, and you could. Yeah, I could see what you're talking about, but it's really that E7 chord that's gonna do away with your theory there, Brian. And that, well, how do you explain this note? Right, that G sharp creeps up there pretty good. So if you wanted to think about playing C major. Right? Okay, sure, we could do that. That I did what you said. Yes, that you'd have to, but if you're going to have to change, you might as well, rather than thinking about it as playing like from the fifth mode of C to the fourth mode of C, just think about it like you're playing like G over a G and then an F. And that way, whenever you think about what the actual chord is that you're playing over, rather than the mode of that the chord is a part of, okay, I think that you have a higher likelihood of seeing the 1, the 3, and the 5 of those respective things, rather than just playing up and down a scale and thinking that you're somehow gonna magically land on each of the most important notes as you randomly descend through the C major scale, and you're gonna think, oh, I'm gonna be landing on the key tones, on the key beats. You're better off utilizing G arpeggios over the G chord, F arpeggios over the F chord, and C arpeggios over any C chords that we encounter. All right, that's just that's the MO that I've come up with over the last 45 years of playing the instrument, and I think there's no one way to do this, but that is definitely a way, because that's what I'm doing for sure. All right, great question though. Really important to start to kind of come up with the idea, but I think in the language of your question actually tips your hand. All right, and actually shines a light on what the truth of the matter is. You say it right here, over the loop, and target the chord tones to fake their way through this loop. right? Fake. That's different. And I tend to, obviously I want to see people get up and running quickly, all right? And I know that some of these explanations are long-winded and stuff like that, and that's a bummer. But the truth is, there is no secret formula that just unlocks everything and makes it happen. That is just a one thing. You can't really fake this. The best way to fake it would be playing good G major pentatonic blues licks, and then occasionally snagging one or two of the key like out to lunch notes that that show that you're paying attention to the third of some of these secondary dominant chords that are coming up. Another question. Italian blues player Albert Collins was good at playing notes to cover a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, obviously Albert Collins is a fucking legend. He's just kind of a hard guy to play in the style of, because he's such overbright, telly, fingers, capo. He's just so many elements conspiring towards the individuality of the guy's sound that he's not really high on my list of influences, because I don't really listen to too much of that music. Oh man, look at this fluffy fucking pompadour thing I'm rocking today. This is kind of weird. Anyway, guys, I just think of this as a great song, and the more you look at tunes like this, or Hesitation Blues, or Kinfolks in Carolina, or some of the more like JV level jazz songs, you're really gonna, a lot of the great Ray Charles songs as well. They have like Lucky Old Son, or Hallelujah, I Love Her So, or any of those, Them That Got, any of those kind of tunes that have those 1-6-2-5s in them. These are great opportunities for you to learn how to play through more meaningful changes rather than your standard, just like, which nothing wrong with more straight ahead rock music. I like that too. It's just that sometimes on a Sunday morning you want to play something that has a little bit different vibe. All right. So if we want to, we should, and happily will pivot to a different song or something like that. Brian, you're very welcome. Yeah, I mean, I think that you want to. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, I mean, if we're looking at what we're doing, if we want to do like more of a phony blues thing, right? We could be thinking about playing from the 1 of the G chord. Right, so if we're doing, come up and grab this note over the F chord and then bend up, that would be over the E chord, then back to the A. Okay, then you'd have to go. Let's see if I can just do it all from G major pentatonic here. That would be. Fake it there. cool. I mean, that's some of the that's kind of nice. That's that B7 triad, and then I'm coming up and tagging that C. Right, so that gives it that a lot of tension, and then. That's it, right? All right, Brian. So thank you very much for tuning in. Now let's make a hard pivot, and I'll open up the floor to any questions. Otherwise, we're past the 67-minute mark here. I'm happy to go upstairs and start making some beef for my nachos. I'm going to make some nachos and watch the football game with my son maybe a little later. We had snow overnight. Unfortunately, it's kind of like this wintry mix. They love that word, wintry. Not wintry, wintry. All right, basically frozen rain, shit like that. Oh, there's a bunch of other things here. All right, no, that's all old stuff. All right, so adios, folks. I just want you to be aware of certain things. This song kind of flew under my radar for a long time, and I got turned on to it a little while back from guys I play in bands with. From time to time, they're like, "Oh, you like that? You should check out this," because. We're always looking for things that are a little off the beaten path, and so doing tunes like this, or anyway, guess that's it. All right, so take care, everybody.